Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.
Peace everybody. This Saturday evening at 8:14. Hopefully everyone's doing well this Saturday evening. If you can hear us, can you put some ones in the chat?
Who is us?
What you mean, who is us?
Oh, well, I guess somebody else had to say something for that us to make any sense. Grand, right? I mean, peace, y'all.
See, that's exactly what you get.
You play too much. You set me up.
I didn't set you up. You set yourself up. I did not set you up. Do not put that in there. So, everybody in the chat, let us know if you can hear us. It's 8:14. I know that we're having some... the best way to put it is some streaming challenges. So, if you can hear us, put some ones in the chat. Let us know that we're coming through loud and clear. I think we're going to be having some delays. So, no one has heard us yet. It's still not showing up on the website. Okay.
It's playing on the website. That's what it's still on the music though.
Yeah.
It's still delayed.
So tomorrow we're gonna do the test without YouTube, and we'll just run a test with just the website to see what happens because we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, it's gonna run no problem. The problem is doing YouTube and the website at the same time.
So sad. And I used to like YouTube. And I guess YouTube used to like us too. What went wrong, y'all? Where did we go wrong? Anybody know? Anybody?
I just want to let you know you're doing a great job. A really, really great job. You're not doing anything wrong.
Basically.
Keep up the good work.
Wow. Thanks.
You know, the website in my end is actually 3 minutes delayed.
Okay. Okay, so the website is 3 minutes delayed. Got it.
But that's just in my area.
Right.
Each area may be different.
Right. Okay, Enrique put a 1 in the chat. So that's about a 3 minute delay from what I'm seeing. All right, cool. Yeah, now I'm starting to see the I'm starting to see that everything pop up. Yeah, everybody's starting to put ones in chat because they can hear us. Yeah, so that's it's like a 4 minute delay. All right. Hey, everybody's putting ones in the chat. All right, we got you. We got you. Cool beans. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We are actually streaming on Facebook and we're streaming on our website. Because remember, come Monday, we're going to only be streaming on the website. Is that true, Bones?
That is the plan moving forward. Yep.
All right. So just know that come Monday, we will be on the website only. We will not be on YouTube. We will be on the website. So if you want the information for the website, we can send it to you so you can go ahead and start. Get your login, which is free. It doesn't cost you anything. and then you'll know exactly how to access everything from the website come Monday. Because at the end of the day, like we said, we want to make sure that we have control of the content and we have control of the quality. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is from our own platform. So, if you decide to come over, that'd be great. If not, hey, I get it. So, want to say peace to the new subscribers. We definitely appreciate y'all. Want to say peace to the Attackers Assembly silent majority. Thank y'all for showing up and being there. And want to say peace to the best chat on earth. Normally we don't run on Saturdays, but again, like I said, we're transitioning to our own website. So that's where you'll be able to access everything, be able to see everything, and then you have a permanent chat to where you're not limited to how often you chat or where you chat. Now I need to say it's about a 4-minute delay on YouTube. Okay. Anybody on the website, if you're on the website, let us know if there's what the delay is on the website that you're experiencing, so we'll have some idea. Okay, Angie said there's a 1-minute delay. I'm about to say Grand Rising Peace, Angie. Hope everything is going well. Thanks for joining the cab, catching the cab this day. So, all right, we ready to get it in, Bones? We ready to break this 1866 Choctaw Chickasaw Nation Treaty down?
Quick question. Video bit rate not over 6,000, right?
No, it is not over 6,000. So I can confirm and check it. Let me go ahead. Nope, it says 6,000 on the dot.
All right.
So, yeah, YouTube seems to be doing fine right now. Let us know if you have any buffering on YouTube. You shouldn't be, but let us know if you do. All right. Let's go ahead and do this roll call.
Roll call.
You want to do the roll call? No silent. You want me to do it? No. Really?
You got it.
I got it. Okay. I will definitely do the roll call. All right. So, peace, Pamela Hall. Peace, Liz Robinson. Peace, No Sellout. Peace, Angie. I'll say peace to Copper Color Ancestor. Peace to Mr. TJ, the Ratchet Man. Peace to Nine Ether. Peace to Enrique. Peace to Muskogee G. Peace to Copper Indio. Peace to Jeffrey Gordon. Make sure I got everybody. Yeah. Peace to everyone that's joining. And again, if I left you out, just put your name in the chat and say, hey, you forgot about me. And we will make sure we give you your shout out for the roll call. All right. So, are you going to be able to read the Treaty of 1866, Choctaw Chickasaw Nation? No.
I got a few lines in me.
You said you got a few lines in you. Okay. I'm gonna have to go pull it back up because I had it in the chat, but they changed it. So let me go find it again. Y'all bear with me. I know how I can do it. This would be the easiest way to do it. Give me this. Copy. Mm-hmm. Alright. Alright, so I'm about to pull it up. I'm putting it in the chat now for further review. It's kind of long. That should work. Alright, let me know when you pull it up, no sellout.
Alright, got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So, let me see. Alright. Go ahead. I'm about to say Grand Rising. Peace, Michael Brown Harris. Peace, Feather Dragon. See, people are getting these late notifications. We're also broadcasting from the website as well, so if you can, at least try to log in and see if you can if you can log in and see anything.
Wait, did we roll call the website? People in the chat?
I'm about to do that now. Just thought about that.
Oh man!
Don't do that. Don't do that. Look, man, I'm
Come on, buddy.
trying to cover all the bases. Stop it.
All right. You caught it before it happened. I understand.
Whatever.
I won't go read. You won't go do nothing to stop me anyway.
Really, that's what we're doing.
I'll see everything.
Trying to see who we have in the chat.
Peace to everybody logged into the website, streaming from over there.
Right now, the only person I see logged in is 9 Ether.
Peace, 9 Ether.
So he logged in on both.
I do what I want.
I ain't mad. All right, the Feather Dragon said he's driving, so that's what's up. All right, so you ready to read?
Yes, I am. All right. Am I just gonna start with Article 1? Am I gonna give that little excerpt at the beginning? Where you want me at? Start with Article 3. Would you?
I say start an article. Just get a little excerpt. Just read it all.
Treaty of 1866, Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation. It states here, Articles 1 through 6 are produced below. These are articles that pertain to the citizens of African descent who lived in these nations. These articles pertain to the liberation from bondage to the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations and to their former Confederate slave owners.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're seeing is that it says these articles pertain to citizens of African descent who lived in these nations. So we already know who that pertains to versus who that doesn't pertain to. So how do you know if somebody has African descent in them, right? These articles pertain to their liberation from bondage to the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation and to their former Confederate slave owners. So who were the slave owners? You talk about the Choctaw, talk about the Chickasaw. Grand Rising Celestial Love. Glad you was able to join us.
Grand evening, Celestial Love.
Yeah, grand evening. I'm sorry. It's habit, man. Whatever, dude. Grand evening, Celestial Love. So go ahead and read Article 1, man.
All right. Article 1. Permanent peace and friendship are hereby established between the United States and said nations, and the Choctaw and Chickasaw do hereby bind themselves respectively to use their influence and to make every exertion to induce Indians of the plains to maintain peaceful relations with each other, with other Indians, and with the United States.
So that seems simple, right?
Seems. Mic check, am I good?
Yeah, you could. It said said nations. So what nations are they talking about? And Choctaw and Chickasaw. It said bind themselves respectively to the use of their influence and to make every exertion to induce Indians of the plains to maintain peaceful relations with each other, with other Indians, and with the United States. So this is to Indians of the plains to maintain peaceful relations with each other and with other Indians and with the United States. But here's my question, and maybe someone can speak to this. At the end of the day, this treaty is between Choctaw and Chickasaw. Now there were other treaties because you got treaties of Washington, which is basically talking about the treaties of the United States. So they would have to do this type of treaty with every eastern tribe. So I want you to keep that in mind. So this is just one of those treaties. So go ahead, no sellout. Article 2.
Article 2. The Choctaw and Chickasaws hereby covenant and agree that henceforth neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, otherwise than in punishment of crime whereof the parties shall have been duly convicted in accordance with laws applicable to all members of the particular nation, shall ever exist in said nations.
Now, what does this sound like to y'all? This sounds like the forerunner to what? The 14th Amendment, right? So why would they be having this treaty when they haven't put together the 14th Amendment, which comes out in what, 1868? So this is basically the forerunner, because you look at it, it says slavery nor involuntary servitude, otherwise than in punishment of crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. That's what is mentioned in the 14th Amendment. It says convinced in accordance with the laws applicable to all members of the
13th Amendment.
The 13th. It's the 13th Amendment. Oh, thank you. So this is a predecessor. So this is like they're doing the same thing with the Indians that they're doing with the citizens of the United States. So, and they just broke that. And that article is specific to that. So they're getting rid of slavery, it seems. But they're basically, when I go say getting rid of it, it's basically a transition from slavery to prison. If that makes sense.
Basically legalizing it.
Yeah. So, go ahead with Article 3. So this is a long article, so we're gonna break it down before you read the whole thing. So, go ahead. What's that up?
Yep. My bad.
No, you good.
Am I good?
Yep, you good.
All right. The Choctaw and Chickasaws, in consideration of the sum of $300,000 check. Am I good? Is my audio good?
Yeah, your audio just went back up because it went down, but now it went back up.
I'm good. Okay. Hold on. The Choctaw and Chickasaws, in consideration of the sum of $300,000, hereby cede to the United States. Can you read for me, TMH?
All right, I got you. Now you good. So the Choctaw and Chickasaw, in consideration of the sum of the $300,000, hereby cede to the United States a territory west of the 98th degree west longitude, known as the leased district, provided that the said sum shall be invested and hereby held by the United States at an interest not less than 5% in trust for the said nations until the legislations of the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, respectively, shall have made such laws, rules, and regulations as may be necessary to give all persons of African descent residence in the said nation at the date of the Treaty of Fort Smith, and their descendants thereof held in slavery among nations, all the rights, privileges, and immunities, including the right of suffrage of citizens and said nations, except in the annuities, monies, and public domain claimed by or belonging to said nations, respectively, and also to give to such persons who were residents as aforesaid in their residence 40 acres each of the land of said nations of the same terms as the Choctaws and Chickasaws, to be selected on the survey of said land after the Choctaws and Chickasaws and Kansas Indians have made their selections as wherein provided, and immediately on the attachment of such laws, rules, and regulations, the said sum of $300,000 shall be paid to the said Choctaw and Chickasaw nations in the proportion of 3/4 to the former and 1/4 to the latter, less such sum. And you notice there's a lot of commas, so it's not there's no stop. And to me, this is done to agitate and frustrate, because why would you need to put all these commas and semicolons when you could just make periods and make it simple? They didn't want it to be simple to be read. They wanted it to be full of legalese and frustrate those that could even read English. So I'm going to stop there, because the thing that I find interesting is that persons of African descent, who would be these persons of African descent that they would have in slavery? I'm trying to figure out what Africans would they have that would fall up under this treaty when there is no situation to where these Indians would have purchased slaves. Where would they have purchased these slaves from? Where would they have gotten the money to buy the slaves? Who would they have purchased the slaves from? Does that make sense? But that's something I want y'all to think about, because they're actually talking about slaves. They're actually talking about Africans. Where did these Africans come from? Why are we just now hearing about these Africans? So, I'm going to go ahead and continue to read. It says that the rate of $100 per capita is where I'm reading. As shall be sufficient to pay, such regulations shall elect to remove and actually remove from the said nations respectively. And should the said laws, rules, and regulations not be made by the legislatures of the said nations, meaning if they don't put these things in the bylaws, within 2 years, they have 2 years to put these things in their bylaws and the ratification of this, to put this in the treaties, to enact these things, that if that is not done from the ratification of this treaty, the said sum of $300,000 shall cease to be held in trust for the said Choctaw and Chickasaw nation, and be held for the use and benefit of such said persons of African descent as the United States shall remove from said territory in such manner as the United States shall deem proper. So basically what they're saying is that there's going to be $350,000 set aside for these African slaves and their people. And that if you have not put this stuff in your bylaws and in your legislature within 2 years of the ratifying of this treaty, which means 1868, then that money that is held in a trust will not go to you. It will go directly to the African descendants of the United States, because they shall remove from the said territory in such a manner the United States, and shall deem proper the United States, agreeing with the 90 days from the expiration of said 2 years, to remove from said nations all such persons of African descent as may be willing to remove. So basically, they'll be taking that money and the slaves, the African slaves, from them. It says those remaining or returning after having been removed from said nation to have no benefit of said sum of $300,000 or any part thereof but shall be upon the same footing as the citizens of the United States in the nations. So what they're saying is, if these people come back and they have not benefited or had not had that money, then they shall be upon the same footing, meaning viewed the same way as other citizens of the United States and said nations. And that's pertaining to all such persons of African descent may be willing to remove, and those remaining, this is the ones they're talking about, or returning after being removed from said nations to have no benefit of said sum of $300,000. Hold on. Okay. So what I'm seeing, and I could be wrong. Basically, what Article 3 is doing is setting aside a third of $1 million for these African Americans, and as long as these African who are former slaves, and as long as they are spoken for and taken care of in this tribe, the Chickasaw and the Choctaw, then that money will go to the tribe to benefit those Africans. If they do not provide, meaning the Choctaw and Chickasaw, do not put in their legislation that this money is to take care of them and they're supposed to get their 40 acres, then what's going to happen is that is going to be removed from the Chickasaw and Choctaw, and that monies and that land will be given to those people. That's what's supposed to happen. And basically, they will become citizens. If I'm misreading it, somebody let me know. So let me know. Let me know if you're having problems with viewing my screen or viewing the screen on YouTube. So that's Article 3. Okay. So now let's go to where the rubber meets the road, where all this makes sense. Pamela says that's where these fools get the idea that ADOS is from, but what they know and what they don't know is it's for white people. That's what it will look like. That's what I'm thinking, that these Africans that they're referring to are white people. Whites that they have that they brought on, that were indentured servants and that owed them something. Because remember, at this time, they really don't have a prison system. That's another thing we're going to break down. Is the prison systems and when these prison systems came into existence. Because these prison systems didn't come into existence in bulk until the 13th Amendment was ratified. So, let's move on to Article 4. Article 4 says, the said nations further agree that all Negroes not otherwise disqualified or disabled shall be competent witnesses in all civil and criminal suits and proceedings in the Choctaw and Chickasaw courts. Any law to the contrary was standing, and they fully recognized the right of the freedmen to a fair remuneration on reasonable and equitable contracts for their labor, which the law should aid them to enforce. So, what does that say? Let's break this down. The said nations further agree that all Negroes, so that means all Negroes are separate from all such people of persons of African descent, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a reason why they don't use the same vernacular and the same language to describe what people have assumed are the same people.
Right, because these are, and they're letting you know that they're different people because why? They're different articles.
Right, and the articles are set up to apply to different subjects and different groups within these subjects.
Mm-hmm. So, Article 3 is concerning the enslaved Africans. Article 4, which is a totally separate article from Article 3, says, further agrees that all Negroes, all means all, and that's all means. It didn't say all Negro slaves. It didn't say some Negroes. It didn't say Negroes that were indentured servants. It said all Negroes. Not otherwise disqualified or disabled. How would you be disqualified or disabled? Basically, if you got kicked out the tribe, right? Or if you're not considered a Negro. And I'm sure there's some things that would disqualify, but for this it says all Negroes shall be competent witnesses in all civil and criminal suits and proceedings in the Choctaw and Chickasaw courts, and law to the contrary withstanding, and they fully recognize that the right of the freedmen to a fair remuneration on reasonable and equitable contracts for their labor. So what does a remuneration mean? Because we know what enumeration means. It means to count, right? To account for something. So that means the enumeration wasn't originally equitable, so you have to re-enumerate when you're dealing with these freedmen in these contracts. These freedmen would be these Negroes who are no longer under contract. Why else would you call them freedmen? Right, and it says for their labor. So if they're freemen, they're not slaves because this is labor we're talking about. And it says which the law should aid them to enforce. And they agree on the part of their respective nations. Hold on. These freedmen have respective nations? What nations are these people are? What nations are these freedmen from? Hold on. Let's go back and look at this. And they agree on their respective nations. Who's there? Well, you got to go back to the previous sentence. That's what they were talking about. Who were they talking about in the previous sentence? They were talking about the freedmen. So these freedmen were captive and they were indentured servants. They have served their time. Now they must be recounted on reasonable and equitable contracts, meaning at one particular time the labor was free. Now the labor is no longer free. Now you have to count them as employees and you must pay them a fair wage. Right?
Right. And for anybody that didn't catch that term, remuneration, because that's not a term we often use these days. That does mean pay. That represents some form of compensation for labor.
Right. Thank you for that. Remuneration is compensation for labor. A fair remuneration, which is a fair compensation for labor, reasonable and equitable. So they were once not getting paid because they were in debt. Now they're getting paid, and it must be equitable, and it must be fair, and it must be reasonable. So, and then it says, and they agree on the part of their respective nations. Well, we know that freedmen were nothing more than Indians from other tribes that were captured to pay off a debt, right? So if they have a nation, they must be talking about their tribe, right? Unless they're Europeans from Ireland and Germany, then those are nations too, right? Because you gotta realize we do have some of those that would have been indentured service to Indians. Remember the 17 million Irish and Germans that came over between 1820 and 1870? So we could be talking about melanated Indians, we could be talking about melanated Irish, and we could be talking about melanated Germans. And it goes on to say after the comma that all laws shall be equal in their operation upon Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes, and that no distinction affecting the latter shall at any time be made, and that they shall all be treated with kindness and protected against injury, and that they further agree that while they said freedmen now in the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations remain in said nations respectively, that they shall be entitled to as much land as they may cultivate for the support of themselves and families in case where they do not support themselves and families by hiring, not interfering with existing improvements without the consent of the occupant. It being understood that in the event of the making of the laws, rules, and regulations aforesaid, that 40 acres aforesaid shall stand in place of the land cultivated as last aforesaid. So not only are these Negroes, which could be determined or deemed as Indians from other tribes, whose tribes have either been removed or who have moved on, or they could be Europeans from Ireland or Germany. There shall be no distinction. Let me highlight this. That no distinction affecting the latter shall at any time be made. What does it mean if they say no distinction? Peace, Lady J. You got to realize the United States cannot tell, but from a Negro, from an Indian, from a melanated Irish or a melanated German because of the many different hues they come in. So they just got to classify them all as Negroes. Because the 1924 Act will take care of everybody. But at this particular time, they're saying that no distinction affecting the latter shall at any time be made, and that they shall be treated with kindness and be protected against injury. And they further agree that with the said freedmen, now in the Choctaw Chickasaw nations remains, said nations respectively, they shall be entitled to as much land as they may cultivate for the support of themselves and families. Now, here's the thing that I just noticed. and maybe I'm looking at it wrong. So somebody help me out. They're classifying the Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes, right? Because this is talking about how the Choctaws and Chickasaws should be dealing with who? The freedmen, right?
That's right.
So now it goes on to say that all laws shall be equal in their operation upon Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes, right? And that no distinction affecting the later shall at any time be made, and that they all shall be treated with kindness and be protected against injury. And they, who are they? The Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes further agree that while the said freedmen, so the freedmen are separate from the Negroes. Do y'all see that?
Yep. Now that's something to take note of, because again, you have an assumption that these groups are all the same.
Mm-hmm.
But all you have to do is follow the language. Follow the language as it actually is in these treaties, and that begins to show you the difference there that everybody assumes is all the same.
Because "and" means inclusive, so Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes are all considered the same.
Right.
Negroes just means Indians that aren't Choctaws and Chickasaws. Let's go get you. Says, didn't freedmen get banned from tribes after serving in the Civil War? There's a lot of things that happened after the Civil War. Some of the tribes that went north, we've covered it in other videos, so to make sure that I don't misquote or missay anything, we'll get back to you on that. Let's go get you. But basically, they were separated. They were basically, the freedmen were basically classified as former slaves. And the reason why they was classified as former slaves is because the Indians that went to Oklahoma wanted them removed from the rolls. But the Choctaw and the Cherokee, the Choctaw and the Cherokee that sued the tribes were able to get their recognition back using this act right here, the 1866 Act, because it showed that the freedmen were not former slaves. Because the former slaves, or the slaves they're talking about, were the people of African descent. They were indentured servants that had served time, and that time was already spent. That's why they were freedmen. So they were Indians that were under capture because they either owed a debt or because they were captured during the war. Remember, there was a lot of wars going on at this time. So those freedmen were nothing more than Indians from other tribes who had paid their debt. Not to be confused with Negroes, not to be confused with the Choctaw and Chickasaw that were already there, and definitely not to be confused with the African slaves and their descendants, because that's covered in Article 3. This is a separate article talking about separate people, Article 4. This article specifically deals with Choctaw, Chickasaw, Negroes, and freedmen. Article 4 does not deal with Africans and their descendants. That's Article 3. So hopefully that helps. So now it says, now when the Choctaw and Chickasaw nations remain in said nations respectively, they shall be entitled to as much land as they may cultivate for the support of themselves and families, in case they do not support themselves and families by hiring, not interfering with existing improvements without the consent of the occupant. It being understood that the event of the making of the laws, rules, and regulations aforesaid, the 40 acres aforesaid shall stand in place of the land cultivated as last aforesaid. So these individuals, these freedmen, are supposed to be issued 40 acres by the Choctaw Nation, Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation. Just like the Africans and their descendants in Article 2. But the Africans and descendants in Article 2 are not only supposed to be given 300, not only they're given 40 acres, but they're supposed to be given a sum of $300,000 to be dispersed amongst them. Or $300 is supposed to be dispersed amongst them by the tribes. And if that is not done and put in legislation within 2 years, then the government will take it away from them and do it themselves and issue that land to them, if that makes sense. So Article 3 is for the Africans, and Article 4, Article 3 is for Africans and their descendants. Article 4 is for Negroes, all Negroes, and for freedmen. And then here you see that the Negroes, Choctaw and Chickasaw, are considered the same. Why? Because and is inclusive. Why would you have Choctaws, Chickasaws, and Negroes together, and now they're supposed to be looking at or treating freedmen with respect and giving them lands if they weren't supposed to be, if they were supposed to be considered all together? So just something to think about. Again, if I'm stating something that's wrong, please correct me. So, no, sell out. You back yet? Anybody got anything they want to add? Because I'm just up here talking. I don't want to be monopolizing time or what have you.
Peace to the chat.
Really, that's what you got?
Peace to the panel.
Alright. So, let's go ahead and finish reading. So Article 5, it says a general amnesties of all past offenses against the laws of the United States committed before the signing of this treaty by any member of the Choctaw Chickasaw Nation is hereby declared, and the United States will especially request the states of Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Texas to grant the like amnesty as to all offenses committed by any member of the Choctaw or Chickasaw Nation, and the Choctaw and Chickasaws anxious for the restoration of kind and friendly feelings among themselves do hereby declare an amnesty for all past offenses against their respective governments, and no Indian or Indians shall be prescribed or any act of forfeiture or confiscation passed against those who may have remained friendly to the United States, but they shall enjoy equal privilege with the other members of said tribes, and all laws hereto passed inconsistent herewith are hereby declared inoperative. The people of the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nations stipulate and agree to deliver upon any duly authorized agent of the United States all public property in their possession which belonged to the late so-called Confederate States of America or the United States without any reservation whatever, particularly ordnance, stores, and arms of all kinds. This treaty was ratified June 28, 1866, and proclaimed July 10, 1866. So basically what they're saying is, once you agree to this, you're going to forfeit all of your land and all the properties to the United States. Because here's the thing. It says the people of the Choctaw and Chickasaw Nation stipulate and agree to deliver upon any duly authorized agent of the United States all public property in possession which belonged to the late so-called Confederate States of America or the United States without any reservation whatever, particular ordnance, stores, and arms of all kinds. So that's why they end up having to leave that land, because they basically had to forfeit it in order for this treaty to get signed. And amnesty means they were not going to be convicted of any crimes that happened before the signing of this treaty, any war crimes. But this treaty does dissolve any treaty that was signed before it because of the war crimes. So, does anybody have anything they want to say in reference to this? Did I miss anything? Is there something I should have covered that I didn't cover? Peace, that boy wig. Again, for those of you that are watching, we are actually streaming also on the website, TitusAssembly.com/Cab Grand Rising Show. Does anybody on the panel got anything they want to share?
I think you got to.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Mic check. Can you
No, yeah, you good.
Okay. No, I was just saying, I think you got it.
Okay. I want to make sure I ain't missed nothing. Because this act right here is important, because if it is removed according to what Comcast is trying to do, that's going to mess up a lot of what we're trying to accomplish as a people. That's going to keep us from doing some things and slow us down significantly with the growth that we're going to have, being able to be self-sufficient. So, and that's what Comcast is attacking. They're attacking this act right here, it's particularly Article 4. Because this part right here dealing with all Negroes, because they're talking about all Negroes. So when they talk about Article 4, anything about Article 4 pertains to all Negroes. And even descendants of freedmen. So if they get rid of this, yeah, it's going to be a problem. So, man, Angie says, I need to read this 10 times. Okay, David, you crazy. So hopefully the breaking down of this treaty gives you a better understanding of what the purpose of it is and what it means and why it's so important. Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat again. Another thing you can do is you can look up Reconstruction treaties. Well, Comcast is not going to particularly attack just Article 4. They're going to just try to get rid of the whole act. So, You mean the African descendants? The African descendants, well, that's Article 3. The African descendants one has absolutely nothing to do with us. Because we weren't African descendants. Well, some of us might have been, but again, you got to realize this is 1866. Remember, in 1880, there was a rush to Africa. And the reason why there was a rush to Africa, because there was a cure for malaria. The reason why they was not able to colonize Africa, especially that part of Africa, is because of malaria. The malaria was killing them, meaning the colonizers. So they didn't start colonizing Africa until 1885. This treaty was written in 1866. So what Africans are they talking about? The only Africans that they could have been talking about are the ones that were either in Algiers or Tangier, which were the two states out of the 54 states formerly known as Ethiopia. So there was only two states in Ethiopia, aka what they call Africa at the time. One was called South America, and one was called, South Africa, and one was called North Africa. Those are just two states. So two states out of 54 were called Africa. The rest of the continent was called Ethiopia. So if that's the case, then what Africans are they talking about? They would have to be talking about the Africans in Tangier or the Africans in Algiers, which basically would have been your who? The Africans that are considered white today, right? Because that's the northernmost part of Africa. So here's another something y'all can read. Let's see if I can. Yes, not. I'm gonna put the link to the Reconstruction treaties because that's important to read too, because it talks about all the treaties during the Reconstruction period. Because the Civil War started in 1861. The treaty I just read was after 1861. It was in 1866. Peace, Oak Cliff. So I'm going to read a little bit about the Reconstruction treaties and then we're going to move on. Okay, Pamela says, write a TMH, but they may be a descendant of someone. Pamela, that's true, but at the end of the day, again, that would be only one line. So if a person chooses to use that treaty, they would have to prove that they are part of those descendants, those Africans that came over. They would not be able to prove that they were West African because West Africa did not become colonized until 1880. South Africa did not become colonized until the mid-1880s. The eastern part of Africa did not become colonized until the 1880s. This article, this act, was written and ratified and signed in 1866. You're basically talking about 14 years before the cure for malaria was discovered. 14 years after slavery so-called ended, or the transition of slavery to imprisonment. So the only people that could actually get that type of retribution would be the white Africans. Exactly, Angie. Let's think about this. You think the government is going to be giving out money or ADOS to people from Ghana when Ghana was not colonized at that time? Because think about it, if you're gonna be trying to give out that money, the government's gonna make you prove it. You don't think they're just gonna be just handing out checks to anybody that claim that they're African, right? They're gonna have to prove it, right? So, but I see your point. But they'd have to be of Berber relation. So let's look at the first part of Reconstruction Treaties, and then we're going to let everybody move on with the rest of their day. Again, hopefully you're able to sign on to the website and view the YouTube channel, because we are moving to YouTube. Moving to our website on Monday. Please believe that. Please understand that, and please know that. We are moving to our own website come Monday. So you may get a notification from YouTube saying that we're on the website. So just know you have to go to the website to see the Grand Rising show on Monday, because that's what the plan is. If something changes, we will definitely let you know. But for right now, where we're at, we're moving everything over to the website. So let's go ahead and read this first part of the Reconstruction Treaties. Again, I put the link in the chat about the Reconstruction Treaties. It says, on the eve of the American Civil War in 1861, a significant number of indigenous peoples in the Americas have been relocated from the southeastern United States to Indian Territory west of the Mississippi. Now that's funny because it says on the eve of the American Civil War. Don't that seem strange? It's a strange time to be moving some people knowing that there's about to be a civil war. If there's about to be a civil war, don't you think the South is going to know that you're moving these people and they're going to fight? But then again, maybe that's just me.
You're not seeing things on this one, because people knew, both in the citizenry and in the government knew that the war was coming.
Right.
They knew tensions were building up. So if you see this mass migration of people right before this powder keg is about to blow, that's not coincidence.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, this is happening. This is setting up pieces on the chessboard.
Right. Okay. Thank you for clarification.
Yep. And mostly what they're considering to be pawns. Keep that in mind.
Right. So it said these people of the Americas have been relocated from the southeastern United States to the Indian Territory west of the Mississippi. The inhabitants of the eastern part of the Indian Territory, the 5 civilized tribes, were suzerain nations with established tribal governments, well-established cultures, and legal systems that allowed for slavery. Think of that slavery word again. Before European contact, these tribes were generally matriarchal societies, with agriculture being the primary economic pursuit. The bulk of the tribes lived in towns, some covering hundreds of acres and containing thousands of people, with planned streets, residential, and public areas. The people were ruled by complex hereditary chiefdoms of varying sizes and complexity, with high levels of military organizations. So they're telling you that these people were not savage. Because if you're savage, you don't have a complex anything, do you? Right?
Nope.
Okay.
That's right. And also, I want to touch on that strange term from that last sentence, suzerain. Okay, suzerainty. If you follow the link that's there for that term, it says it's a relationship in which one region or polity controls the foreign policy and relations of a tributary state, while allowing the tributary state to have internal autonomy. So basically, these were city-states, so to speak.
Okay.
That paid tribute to the larger sovereign. So that puts this in the context here.
Okay, Liz, did you log into the forum? Because if you log into the forum, you'll see the option to chat. You'll see the chat. You know, when you go to the website, you must log into the forum using your whatever password you created and log in again. This doesn't cost you anything. So if you log in and then you click in, you'll see the chat. The chat will have a box and you just basically pop it out. I'll show people how to do it once we get done with this part. Thank you, Mr. TJ. He said sign in the form, then click the cab. Thanks for that explanation, Copper.
Sure thing. So
these were not savages. These were people with complex societies. And think about this. This is basically a governmental explanation of this. So it says by the middle of the 19th century, United States government has started leasing land from the 5 civilized tribes, ex-Choctaw and Chickasaw, in the western, more arid part of Indian Territory. These leased lands were used to resettle several Plains Indian tribes that tended to be nomadic in nature. Embracing... Y'all see that, right? It said... I'm going to read that apart again.
Please do. Thank you so much, TMH. I really do appreciate you.
No, bro, you can, bro. It says these leased lands were used to resettle several Plains Indian tribes that tended to be nomadic in nature, embracing the horse culture at the extreme. The Comanche society was based on patrilineal and patrilocal extended families sharing a common language. They did not develop the political idea of forming a nation or tribe until their relocation to Indian Territory. So there's a distinct difference between Plains Indians and these indigenous peoples of America. You see that? Hold on. These indigenous people of America are a stark contrast to the Plains Indians. These indigenous people of America, they said, were matriarchal societies, with agriculture being the primary economic pursuit. The bulk of the tribes lived in towns, some covering hundreds of acres and containing thousands of people. I mean, they had cities, people. It says also with planned streets, Natchez. Residential and public areas, Natchez built that. The people were ruled by complex hereditary chiefdoms of varying size and complexity of high levels of military organizations, which means they had a military. Now let's compare these indigenous peoples of America, right, to the wait. Where's that land? Plains Indians. These Plains Indians had to have land set aside for them. This land was leased from the 5 civilized tribes, right? So land was leased from the 5 civilized tribes to the Plains Indians because they tended to be nomadic. Nomadic means you just roam. You don't have a home. These are people that had your teepees and wigwams. Temporary structures because you're always on the move following animals. These were the ones that followed the buffalo.
Yep.
They are not to be confused with our ancestors. Please don't do that.
No.
And it says they're embracing the host culture, which means the host culture was not something that they were already known to have. You embrace something because it's new to you and it's something that's introduced to you. Keep that in mind. It says at the extreme, the Comanche society was based on patrilineal and patrilocal extended family sharing a common language. Patrilineal is based off of your father, not your mother. Am I correct, Bones? Am I correct, everybody?
Correct.
So, who does this sound more like? The American Indians or Mayans, or does it sound more like your Europeans?
No, call them what they really are. Ancestors of the Huns and Chinese and Mongols that came over years before.
So, I'm just saying.
So I clicked on that on the link. I clicked on Comanche, and then I clicked on Great Plains.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that Great Plains is a broad expanse of flat land, a plain,
Mm-hmm.
it covered in prairie, steppe, and grassland located in the United States and Canada. It lies west of the Mississippi River, tall grass prairie in the United States, and east of the Rocky Mountains of the U.S. and Canada. It embraces the entirety of Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, and South Dakota.
Right. And this is where the majority of your Mongol Indians came from, and where they were, because they were basically in areas that we couldn't grow anything. At one time you could, but when they were there, you couldn't grow anything. That's why they were chasing buffalo, because they couldn't grow anything. They were basically like Choctaw Jimmy tells us, they were following the herd, and they was basically eating raw meat. They were your meat eaters. Probably didn't eat many vegetables because they couldn't grow any. That part is
And if people wonder why we consider them Asian, the time period you need to study the Chinese that came over as indentured servants and paid workers in the early 1600s to find out where these people really come from.
Mm-hmm. That was a mass migration. Go ahead, Copper.
Yeah, it was a big mass migration. And anybody that has not seen Dances with Wolves, it may be an interesting film to watch. But if you've seen it, remember the scene where the Kevin Costner's character, I forget his name now, the former soldier from the Civil War ends up in the company of some of these Plains Indians, and he's following them when they're hunting Tatanka, they're hunting buffalo, and you see them take the buffalo down, and one of the warriors cuts the heart out and eats it while it's still sitting there squirting blood out of it, and then hands it over to him, and he's like, "Hey, have at it," and he bites out of it too. That was their way. That was why they chased the herd and hunted the herd the way they did. Because, like I said, they were eating raw meat. Because you didn't have a whole lot of vegetation there. There wasn't a whole lot of agriculture at that point because of the landscape. So that's what they did.
I found something.
What you find?
1600s, the timeline. 1600s, Chinese and Filipinos reached Mexico on ships of the Manila Galleon in 1763. First recorded settlement of Filipinos in America to escape imprisonment aboard Spanish galleons. They jumped ship in New Orleans and flee into the bayous of Louisiana.
Right. Now, let's look at this. This kind of seems like a Twilight Zone a little bit, but bear with us. So you're seeing a whole lot of people from East Asia that have ended up in parts of the Gulf Coast. You're seeing, as a matter of fact, that we were talking about this the other day. The ship that was attributed to the 20-odd Negroes that the British commandeered from the Portuguese near Jamestown colony came from Japan. East Asia knew about this place long before Europeans showed up. So you want to look at where a lot of these other groups of so-called Indians come from? You can find it here in this period. And this was not 20,000 years ago across the land bridge in Siberia. All of that stuff didn't happen that long ago, and you don't need to go back that far to find it.
Yeah, this says in
Because
179. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go.
No, this says 1790, first recorded arrival of Asian Indians in the United States.
Arrival of Asian Indians.
So can you post that in the chat so people can look at it?
Oh, yeah. My bad. Yeah.
Thank you. So, all right, where we at? Okay, it says they did not develop the political idea of forming a nation or tribe until their relocation to Indian territory. So when these Plains Indians were put on Indian territory, then and only then were they able to do that. Were they able to form, their lands and things of that nature, or their political government. But politics is not something they were interested in because they were nomadic people. Thank you, Gabby, for posting that. So then it goes on to read that at the beginning of the Civil War, the Union Army was withdrawn from Indian territory, exposing 5 civilized tribes to aggression from the Plains Indians. The Confederacy filled the vacuum. All of the 5 civilized tribes, as well as other surrounding tribes, signed treaties with the Confederacy. As part of the Reconstruction, the Southern Treaty Commission was created by Congress to write new treaties with the tribes that sided with the Confederacy. Okay, so think about that. It says that at the beginning of the Civil War, the Union Army was withdrawn from the Indian Territory. Because where was the Indian Territory that they were at? Was in the Southeast, right? If you're a Union Army, you got to go north and then come back down and fight south. It said they exposed the 5 civilized tribes to aggression from the Plains Indians. The Confederacy filled the vacuum. All of the 5 civilized tribes, as well as other surrounding tribes, signed treaties with the Confederacy. Think about this. So read this again. It says all 5 civilized tribes, as well as other surrounding tribes, signed treaties with the Confederacy. As part of the Reconstruction, the Southern Treaty Commission was created by Congress to write new treaties with the tribes that sided with the Confederacy. So there were tribes that had treaties with the Confederacy before the war.
Again, none of this is happening in a vacuum.
Right.
There's a slow build to this. They want to make you think that it all just happened and there's a fallout. No, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum, and none of these things are coincidences either.
So I'm gonna read the Civil War, and then we're gonna call it a night. So then it goes on to read that the main article is the Indian Territory in the American Civil War. So then it says, Choctaw Nation and Chickasaw Nation in Indian Territory strongly support the Confederacy, which signed the treaty with Choctaws and Chickasaw. The Cherokee Nation, Muskogee Creek Nation, and Seminole Nation had troops fighting on both sides. Other tribes such as the Osage and the Seneca and Shawnee, and Neosho Agency and Quapaw tribes also signed treaties with the Confederacy. During the Civil War, the Union Congress passed a statute that gave the president the authority to suspend the appropriations of any tribe if the tribe is in a state of actual hostility to the government of the United States, and by proclamation to declare all treaties with such tribe to be abrogated by such tribe. This is what ended the treaties with all the tribes.
I had a question.
What?
I'm sorry, you reading?
No, I'm done. What was the question?
Oh. This sounds like literally, and I could be hearing wrong or
You're probably not. You're probably not, but go ahead.
This sounds like this was okay. Every state, everything is the same thing. It just has a different name.
What do you mean?
Okay, so when you were reading, when you started reading through the Reconstruction Treaties,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and it was talking about the 5 civilized tribe, suzerain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, pulling that up, any suzerainty is any relationship in which one region or polity controls the foreign policy and relations of a tributary state while allowing the tributary state to have internal autonomy. Suzerainty differs from true sovereignty in that through. Okay, so basically, my point is every state governs itself, right?
Yes.
So, with every state governing itself, but it has it just sounds like the same thing. It's just under a different name or a new name.
Can you give an example or be more specific? Because I think I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. Basically,
Bones are gonna say something, but you got.
oh yeah, I was about to say. Basically, what happened is, as one territorial area adopted a law, you can see it spread it to state to state to state. They just followed suit.
Because from time to time, the government, the sovereign, whatever form that government is or whatever that government's called, usually comes in and gives some kind of incentive for states to follow suit. They usually play on whoever's corrupt. This is why you have no shortage of corrupt politicians. We always wonder why this stuff happens the way it does, and this is part of it. And you also have, with this, you also have threats of withholding funds or other resources from the government. Protection. Notice the suzerainty article speaks about protection from threats, foreign and domestic, whether that's whatever tribe of Indians is near this state, or whether you're on the coast or you're on the border with another state that's possibly hostile at times. The federal government is going to give you an incentive, so it's a nice way to put it, an incentive to follow along for that said protection, because otherwise they can't guarantee it. It's almost like the way the mob does it. You got to pay us and we'll guarantee your protection. Otherwise, we can't be held accountable if something bad happens to you. So.
Bingo.
Yep.
And just rewind a little bit. Earlier when TMH and No Sellout was reading the part about the Africans and the 350,000 being put aside, the one part that blows over, what was the amount that the Freedmen Bank had in it? This is how they took the money from the Freedmen's Bank to pay the debts of the South off.
Got you.
And that's what people have to understand. This wasn't what we're seeing now in our government and in our politics is austerity. We're seeing the government use the people in aggregate to pay off the debts that it incurs. That's what this is. You're seeing the government use the funds, the savings of countless people who worked and toiled, and some even died on their land, and they're using that to pay debts off that for a war that didn't need to happen. So keep that in mind. That's where the real travesty of what went on and all this reparations talk, that's what this is really about. or at least that's the sin that was really committed in all of this.
And give you all these other subcategories to keep you so distracted that you never realize what the truth really is.
Yeah, exactly. And so they made your ancestors pay for the government at the time of the South attempting to succeed and failing to do so.
Yep.
And then not only do they take your ancestors' money, but they go to war abroad, come back, bomb your ancestors' cities, and then trick the other ancestors into moving from the South into these cities up north, and cutting off any ties that were had with the South. You wonder why it's so hard for you to go back and find these records? Now you see it.
Mm-hmm. It always been about our output. Has nothing to do with our skin color. That's the part that they use to keep you distracted. It's our output. It's the work that we put in and what we get out from it. It's 2019, and the so-called mislabeled African American generates $1.7 trillion a year. Relatives, please, I'm going to say it again and let this sink in. We generate $1.7 trillion a year. We are the 10th richest group on the planet. Not North America, not the Americas, no, the planet. We are the 10th richest group. We just don't know it.
And when we say 10th, I'm talking about there are nations in Europe that don't generate the wealth that we generate. This underclass, this miscellany, this redaction, all this stuff that you've been told that you are, you still generate more capital than most of the smaller countries in Europe.
I mean, what do you say to that? What do you... Hey man, I ain't got but one thing to say about that. One thing out. So,
What's that, bro?
I mean, oh, it was an explosion. You can't hear it because you on the call. Mr. TJ says, what do I need to go to, and what do I need when I get their 1866 treaty, last Negro ancestors, or Mr. TJ, everything goes back to finding out who you are, because this treaty is only good if you're dealing as a group or a whole. There is no such thing as being able to win as an individual. That's the reason why we always encourage people to find out who they are. Because once you find out who you are, you start to get together with your people, then you can move as a group. You cannot move by yourself and get anything done. The reason why Byron Allen is able to move is because he's moving as a corporation. And his corporation happens to be owned by a Negro. So all he wants is the same access to those towers that Comcast has. That's it. And his argument is the reason why they're keeping him from having access to those towers is because he's a Negro. And he's already won in all the lower courts. That's it. He's not claiming Indian status. He's not claiming none of that. So hopefully that makes sense. But if you don't know who you are, and you don't know who your tribe is, and you don't start getting with your people to start working together, to start doing things locally, it doesn't matter what the 1866 treaty says. because you're trying to do stuff by yourself. And that's the thing that some of these people are trying to promote, whether it's on the internet or otherwise, is to be a sovereign citizen. That's an oxymoron. That does not exist. You can't be sovereign and a citizen. They have sovereign nations, but you don't have a sovereign citizenship.
And you know what's worse, TMH?
What's that?
If you study the sovereign citizenship movement, you will learn that it was created out of hate for our ancestors. So why would you pick up something that was designed because people were jealous of your ancestors and what they had?
Hey man, I don't know, but at the end of the day, that's part of the divide that's plaguing our people. And there are some groups, not all, but there are some groups that are claiming to be Moors. That's their approach. But many of them, there's hundreds of videos on. Let me reframe that. There are thousands of videos of them being incarcerated for doing some of the same things they're telling you they're getting away with. But you see no videos of them actually winning any cases, any federal cases. Not state cases, but federal cases. Because if you are sovereign, if you are a sovereign nation, then it would be a federal case, not a state case.
Bingo, because you would deal on a government-to-government relationship. Federal government. But you in local court, but you're a sovereign citizen.
So, but at the end of the day, the goal is to find out who you are, get with your people, and build your nation. Period, point blank in discussion. Stop trying to do this stuff by yourself. You can't do this by yourself. We weren't designed to do this by ourselves. And if you think about it, and if you look at the way that the Indian War started, what was the motto of the Indian agent? Does anybody remember? Kill the Indian, save the man. What was the first mission that the Indian agent was supposed to do? Separate the Indian from his community by placing them on separate lots. Keeping you from being communal.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
Slice them and dice them. Now I was just gonna say slice them and dice them. Separate them by everything from skin color to hair texture. Think about that comb test we were talking about some months ago, where you had cousins and siblings that were considered to be Indians, but because your grade of hair was different, and it was a little tougher for you to get through your hair with a comb, you were now a nigger. Think about that. Think about the tools they were using and they had employed to keep us separated. That's what this is about. I'm sorry, go ahead, teammate.
No, you're right, bro. Not because of your blood, not because of who your mama and your daddy was, because of your daggone hair texture. Your hair texture separates you from your own family, not your blood, not your DNA. Come on, man. Divide and conquer.
They made us separate by skin tone, and people don't realize it.
Why we talking about colorism today? Why we talking about how people that get this certain level of access or this certain level of celebrity got light skin or mixed or look like they mixed? Why are we talking about this hundreds of years later? Because this is what was used to separate us.
And you said a word I want to touch on real quick. Access. Is that do not look at the Byron Allen case as a wealthy individual. It's not about money. It's about access. Relatives, y'all realize the same access that he's fighting for? That's the same access that's allowed to all of us. See, when they're talking about the 1866 and everything's supposed to be even and equal, that means whatever they're using in America to build their communities and society, we must have the same access. So if there's radio towers, we must have that same access to radio towers. If there's TV broadcast and communication, we must have that same access.
If it's clean water, like they're not having access to it in Michigan and Detroit, then what you need to do is you need to access that 1866 route because you're supposed to have that same access. Where people went wrong with that is that they're trying to prevent the water companies from having access to it. You can't win with that. Your argument should be you should have the same access as them.
Bingo. You can have all the money in the world, but with no access, it's useless paper. Again, you can have all the money in the world, but without access, it's useless paper.
So, I mean, hopefully this is helpful. Hopefully y'all were able to log on to the website. I mean, I got it up. I'm looking at the screen share, and you know, again, we're going to be running a test tomorrow on just the website. So, you know, you'll be getting a notification on YouTube that we're going to be on the website only. So, log into the website. I mean, log into the forum and then and then click on the Cab Grand Rising Show, and you'll be able to chat and you'll be able to do everything over there that we're doing over here.
And remember, the chat on the website is 24 hours a day, 365. The show does not have to be running for us to be in communication with each other.
That's facts. Those are definite facts. So, we definitely appreciate everyone that came out. I'm about to say this rising. We definitely appreciate everybody that came out and worked with us and worked through our growing pains, because that's all this is, growing pains. We definitely appreciate your patience, appreciate your encouragement, appreciate y'all being there for us, because again, without you, we don't exist. I'm going to say it again. Without you, we don't exist. So when we say A2, we mean everybody. When we say attack to this assembly, we mean everybody. We're just not talking about the people that sit on the board, because this is a group effort. Nothing gets done unless we all participate. So I hope y'all understand that. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that resonates. So let's go ahead and do our salutations before we head on out for this evening.
Oh, you were gonna do a quick run through of the website, or you did it already?
Oh no, I didn't do that. You're right. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Thank you for reminding me. Alright. I'm glad you reminded me, because you know me, I'm quick to shut everything down. Share the screen. Where that? Yep. See this right? Looks distorted. It is distorted. Give me a second. Gotta fix something. Alright. Alright, so my screen will be popping up. I do not like that. So let me do this. Alright. So I'm sharing my screen. When it comes up, y'all see it. Let's see, make sure it can be seen. Do it this way. Can anybody see my screen? Peace, Johnny Everhart. Come on, come on. Mr. TJ says, we cut into TMA sleep. Gabby ask a question. Y'all funny. See how they be trying to get you to do something, Gabby?
I question now. I do got a question.
Go ahead with your question, Gabby.
Okay, my question is, did they take over positions, the establishment that was already there, but they just basically stepped into the positions that were already there?
What positions are you talking about?
See, we know it or told or taught that it's the establishment of the United States of America, but it just sounds like everything was already there. We call them states now, and it was called something different then. We call them cities and counties now, but it was called something different then. So it just sounds like reading this that the European, the French, the English, the Spaniards, they stepped into those positions. They just called it something else. Same soup warmed over.
Well, from what I know, they took over the buildings, moved into the buildings, claimed that they built them, or they claim they don't know who built them. They took over the roads, they took over the railroads. So everything that we had built, they had claimed that they had built or they've already done, and just basically removed us out of the picture totally. So from that standpoint, as far as the physical structures, that's true. They then laid their corporate structure over top of what we were already doing and made what we were doing from the standpoint of nonprofit. Because remember, we was only working 56 days out the year, and the other days we were using towards helping everybody in the community. Those that couldn't help themselves, the widowed, the sick, and all those things. So we had a lot of time, and that time was used to give back. They just took what we were doing and they made a profit for themselves, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Because nothing that we did changed. We was doing what we was always doing. They just moved stuff around us, moved stuff from up under us, and then they ended up moving us by flooding us or having people encroach on our land. All right, so for those of you, here's the website, Toxins Assembly. ToxinsAssembly.com is a website. You must go to the forum and log in. Once you log in, you will then see your chat box pop up. Chat box is over here. You click on it and it pops out. Meaning it slides out, it doesn't pop out. So right now you can see that Copper Color Ancestors in here. Vein Range is in here. Nine Ether's in here. And myself and a couple other people. So this this chat, the great thing about this chat is that you can pop it out. Go in the upper right hand corner, click on this box right here with the arrow pointing out, and it will pop out. It will pop out a separate box. I will close this because you're going to need to see the screen. So now you see this is popped out. See? Chat box. So I'm going to move this out of the way right quick and bring it back after I've gone to the actual Cab Grand Rising show. Cab Grand Rising show is here to the far right, right before the donate button. It's to the left of the donate button, in between donate and media. So you click on the Cab Grand Rising show. And this is what you're going to see. You're going to scroll down. Okay. And notice, even as you scroll down, there's a chat box right here. Click on that, and guess what? It slides out. Okay. Now, I don't need this. I'm going to close it because I've already have one that's popped out, and here it is. Okay. So this is my screen. So I want to enlarge the screen. Now, once you enlarge your screen, you lose the slide out box over here. You no longer have it. That's why you want to have the one that's kicked out so you can access it. Have it on another screen, or you can have it somewhere where you can access it. Right now, mine's, it went behind the screen, so now I gotta go get it. But this is what you're gonna actually see. Again, you still have the call out, the call-in number. You still are able to adjust your settings here. Right now, I have them on. The advanced settings is on latency, low latency. Right now I got my quality on auto, but if you're in an event that is buffering, you can put it on 450. And again, if you want to make it bigger, this is how you make it bigger. If you want to shrink it, you go back and click on this one right here, and then it shrinks it. So this is now what the screen looks like. Okay. And you can control the volume and the sound over here, and you can pause it over here. And again, now this at its regular size, you have the chat, and you can see the people in the chat. So that's how you access the chat. Again, you can pop this chat out by going up to the upper right hand corner, right next to the 3 bars. There's a box with an arrow pointed up and out. You click on it, and then it will give you a separate box. And now you can close this box. And it went behind the screen again. So hopefully that helps. So if anybody got any questions in regards to how to log in or where to go, the link, I'll put it back in the chat again, so you can go to the website. Do this. Here's a link to the site. So, hopefully that answers everyone's questions. Hopefully it's beneficial. Yeah, you do not need Twitch to watch the show. You do not need Twitch or a Twitch account to watch the show. You can come straight on the website. You do not need a Twitch app to watch the show. I repeat, you do not need a Twitch app or a Twitch account to watch the show. You come straight on the website and you'll have access to the chat, and you'll have access to the website, and you'll have access to the forum, you'll have access to the archives. So, Bones, is there anything I missed?
No, that's about covered it, and as well as the chat is active on all pages in the website. It's 24/7. The show does not have to, again, the show does not have to be running for us to communicate with each other.
Exactly. So, if we're going to be serious about having our own people, we have to start here and we have to start now. And this is one of the first things that we're going to be doing. We're going to be moving to our own website. And for those of you who actually follow people on YouTube, you'll start to see that there are a lot of organizations that are moving to their own website. They'll show clips of stuff on YouTube, but you won't be able to see their live stuff on YouTube. They're moving stuff to their website because they want to control their content. Now, I don't know how many people are Wu-Tang fans, but Wu-Tang been moved to their own website. You'll see posts, but you won't see any videos that Wu-Tang posts. You'll see videos from some shows that are done on people that do YouTube, but Wu-Tang themselves, everything is on their website. If you think I'm joking, go check them out. A lot of people are doing it, going to their own website. So, again, like I said, hopefully this helps. Hopefully it's beneficial. Hopefully it makes sense. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. So what we can do now is we're gonna go to the salutation so we can let the good people get up out here and enjoy their evening. I was gonna show respect to our women. So ladies first, Miss Gabby, what you got for the good people this evening?
Peace to the panel. Peace to the chat. This was interesting, good stuff. It's definitely important to not only know things that happened in the past, but as Bones said, we need to know how it affects us now as far as gaining access. And those are things we need to pay attention to. So it was definitely interesting going over those things and how they relate to, what's attempting to be changed, so to speak, now. But definitely peace and blessings to everyone. Have a beautiful night and rest easy.
Alright. No sellout. What you got that you want to share with the good people before they head on out this evening? Okay, I guess he tied up. Copper, what you got for us, brother?
All right. Well, peace to the family, peace to the chat, and everybody that's tuned in. Like most times we get on here and we talk about history and what it means, and what it means in relation to where we are now. We see a lot of things that are really, really important, and one of those things that we saw tonight was the way in which treaties that have been written with our people have been written, and how they've been interpreted, not just by the populace as a whole, but another thing to think about is the way that the legal system interprets these treaties. How is the legal system, how is the Supreme Court set their rulings based on the interpretations of those treaties? This is what sets legal precedent for things. You hear a lot of people around here talking about law, but what a lot of people don't really touch on in that discussion of law is the interpretation. Again, not by individuals and citizenry. I'm talking about justices, the people who actually determine whether what you do is legal or not, and whether, even if the United States Congress writes that law, or the state legislature writes a law, whether or not they have to overturn it. This is how a lot of our people ended up going back to their tribes, because interpretations of the law found that there was a mistake in what people had assumed. This is what you're seeing in these treaties. This is why this is important. And I know we've been over this before, but I think that it bears some importance to reiterate, because that's what we're dealing with now with this Comcast thing. And it's not just that fight. There's a lot of things going on now in the media that don't seem to be related to this, but you'll find very soon that they're all related. There are no coincidences, especially when it comes to politics. Always remember that. So I appreciate, as always, the ability to come on here and speak and learn with the rest of you. We're all still learning. So, but peace to you all. Thank you. Have a good night.
All right. So, Feather Dragon says we're going to need a tutorial for that. Need a tutorial for what, Feather Dragon? It might have something to do with the way that the public chat room can be popped out. Okay, we'll help you get walked through. If I need to do a video that shows how to do it, we can do that. That won't be a problem. BC, Big C, we rectify and remedy our situation by finding out who we are and getting back to our tribes and getting back to our tribe's original names, and then making a decision on the determination of whether or not we want to be financially independent with our tribes or financially independent without our tribes. That's how we rectify and remedy our situation. We know that this is a remedy that works, but we are not claiming this is the only remedy that works. And if somebody has another remedy, I mean, I'm all for it, but I need to know that it works. I don't need somebody to be speculating and guessing and then using some guinea pigs. I know this works because we're using it in our tactics assembly. That's how we was able to get the towers. So we know that it works. So you can't be national until you do local. And that's the biggest problem. People want to go national. The politicians are already bought and paid for. So if you think going national is going to work, I'm not going to argue with you. And I'm not going to tell you not to do it. All I'm going to do is tell me, you name me somebody that went national and it works and they didn't go local, and then we can converse about it. Until then, to me, personally, it's speculation. I don't do speculation. I do concrete, hard facts. So again, this is a solution. This is not the only solution. I know the solution works. I can prove the solution works. I can point to you at least 1,000 entities that this has worked for. So, am I saying this is the only solution? No, I am not. Am I saying this is the best solution? No, I am not. But what I'm saying is I know this works. And until someone can show me something else that works, then I'm not subscribing to it. I need proof that something else works. So hopefully that helps. Again, You gotta do what works best for you. This is what works best for me. Um, See if No Sellout got anything that he wants to share before we get up out of here. He's probably busy with the family. I know he got some little ones. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and go. Appreciate everybody, all the new subscribers. We definitely appreciate you. I want to say thank you, because without you, again, you make the numbers climb and you make the numbers rise. For the Tactics Assembly silent majority, you have no idea how powerful you are. The silent majority I liken to the many indigenous American Indians that know they have impact, but they don't know how many there are. And if they would just start reaching out to one another locally, you'll find out how many of you there are, and you'll start to find out how powerful you are, and you'll start to be able to move politicians, move mountains, and move everything that was once thought immovable. So I'm always going to have an affinity for the Titans Assembly silent majority, because we see behind the scenes what you're doing. We see your emails. We see the information that you put in the form. We see what you're doing in your communities. So at the end of the day, much love and respect for y'all. And for the best chat on earth, it is what it is. Y'all always keep us on code. Y'all always make sure we're providing the links. Y'all always making sure we do what we're supposed to do. Again, my job is to make sure that I help you and that we help you find out who you are. My job is not to tell you who you are, because that makes me no different than anybody else. If you want to find out your African tribe, we'll help you do that. If you want to find out your European tribe, we'll help you do that. If you want to find out your American Indian tribe, we'll help you do that. But at the end of the day, look, it's on you to do the work. It's on you to find out who you are. And it's on you to do that so you will know who you are not. And so no one will be able to tell you who you are. Now, one thing I want to emphasize is this. Once you know who you are, you will also know who the enemy of your ancestor was. I'm going to say this again. Once you know who you are, you will know who the enemy of your ancestor was. Don't focus on who your enemy or your ancestor was. Look at what they're doing today. And then you can determine by their actions if they're still an enemy of you and your ancestors. Because if they're not doing anything that's harming you or yours, they're not an enemy. But also, knowing who you are, you'll also know who your tribes were that were helping you in the fight. And just because they were tribes that were helping you in the fight then, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be tribes that's going to help you in your fight now. You need to look at them and see what they're doing to see if they're still doing things to help you. Because if they're not, those, my brothers and sisters, are your new enemies. There's a saying that's very important. Your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear a word you are saying. I'm going to repeat this again. Your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear a word that you are saying. I don't care about what somebody says. I watch what you do. And if you are acting like an enemy and telling me you're my friend, then I'm going to believe what I see, not what I hear. So with that note, I hope everybody have a great evening. And I'm going to turn it over to Bones H. McCoy. And then we're going to get up out of here. And, hopefully y'all be able to join us on the website tomorrow when we stream. So I relinquish the mic, Bones.
All right. Peace to the panel. And again, like I said, much thanks to TMH, No Sellout, Copper Andio, Gabby. I've never felt as great as I do now, knowing that the brothers and sisters that I can depend on. And I say it again, thank you. Thank the chat, the ones that's active and not active, because again, without y'all, none of this is possible. Never forget, you are A2. You are the Autonomous Assembly. You are the gathering of the minds that will do this work. And I'm going to leave out with this. Many times we get together and we talk about and complain about the powers that be and how we need our own. Right now, at this moment, our own sits right in front of us, in our hands. What it becomes is to us and how we use it and how we respect it. We have the ability to take the website in A2 and make it the American Indian broadcast and information channels and stations. We have that ability, but it's how we use it. We can take this form and make sure all this hunting that we had to do to find this information and these overlay stories, that generations moving forward don't have to go through it. And it can't be manipulated because it's in our control. If we're tired of the images that other powers that be put out to disrespect us, to make the world think that we're something lower than what we are, we have the chance to combat it and fight it. So our future, relatives, is what we make of it. Our future starts with what we put in today, so our children can have something for tomorrow. So on that note, let's all make sure that we lie down, knowing that we have the knowledge, we have the finances, we have the skills and the talent, and it has already been written. So let's walk back through that door that we got walked out together, hand in hand, relatives, and take our place back where we rightfully belong. So on that note, everyone have a very blissful night. And until we link up tomorrow for the test on the website, peace.
Peace, y'all.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.